If you do any business in Russia, you're going to want to hear this. The rulebook for data protection has been completely torn up and rewritten, and a single mistake, it could now be a catastrophic company-killing event. Let's break down exactly what's changed and, more importantly, what it means for you. And no, that is not a typo. It's not just some clickbait number to grab your attention. It is the new reality. What used to be a compliance headache, maybe a slap on the wrist, has morphed into a genuine, serious threat to your bottom line. Just let that number sink in. 500 million rubles. That's the new penalty if you have a second data leak. The message from the government couldn't be clearer. Their patience has run out, and the days of small, manageable fines are completely over. So how in the world do you navigate this new landscape? Well, we've broken it all down into 5 key parts. We'll start with the real price of a leak. Then we'll walk through the timeline of how we got here. We'll dive into the nitty-gritty numbers, then a surprising twist from the very first court cases, and finally, we'll wrap up with a solid defense plan to protect your business. All right, first things first, let's really get our heads around just how big this shift is. This isn't a minor adjustment. It's a complete rewrite of the rules of the game. I mean, just look at the difference here. On the left, that's the old world. Fines were low, predictable, something you could probably even budget for. On the right, that's today. We're talking massive, revenue-based penalties that get bigger depending on the size of the leak. But the real game changer, the one that should make every single executive pay attention, is that last line. For the first time, individuals can now face actual prison time. So you might be wondering, how did this all happen so fast? Well, it wasn't exactly an overnight change, but it was a very rapid series of legal moves that built this new reality piece by piece through late 2024 and early 2025. It really kicked off in November 2024 when the new laws were signed. By May 2025, those huge fines we're talking about went live. Then, in December, a subtle but really important change happened. Cases were moved back to magistrate courts. Now, why does that matter? Well, experts believe this was designed to streamline the process for regulators, making it much easier and faster to prosecute companies. And sure enough, by early 2026, we started to see the first results. Okay, this is the part every CFO, every CEO, really anyone responsible for a budget needs to zoom in on. Let's get into the specifics, the actual numbers. Even for your first offense, the fines are now tiered. And look at where they start. A small leak of just 1,000 records will set you back at least 3 million rubles. If you expose the data of over 100,000 people, basically a small city, you are automatically looking at a bill for up to 15 million. But it's not just about how many people are affected. The type of data you leak matters, big time. If it's what they call special category data, we're talking sensitive stuff like health records or political opinions, the fine immediately jumps to between 10 and 15 million rubles. That's even if it's just one person's data. And for biometric data, things like fingerprints or facial scans, it's even worse, 15 to 20 million. But here it is. This is the real monster under the bed. The turnover-based fine for a repeat offense. This is the one that could genuinely cripple a business. We're talking 1 to 3% of your entire annual revenue. Think about that for a second. Even if your second leak is tiny, the absolute minimum you will pay is 20 million rubles, with that penalty stretching all the way up to that $500 million mark. And like I said, it's not just the company's money on the line anymore. It's about personal freedom. New criminal laws mean that actual people, your employees, your managers, maybe even you, can now go to prison. You know, setting up a simple website with some leaked data, that could land you behind bars for 5 years. Illegally sending data across the border, that's up to 8. The risk has officially become personal. So, the law is on the books. The penalties are crystal clear and, frankly, terrifying. But how are the courts actually applying these new rules? Well, the first verdicts that came out in early 2026 reveal a fascinating and really crucial plot twist. Let's take a look at a real-world example. This case involved a digital investment platform that had a major data breach. So the company got hit by hackers, and the personal data of 70,000 clients and employees, we're talking names, job titles, contact info, it all got leaked online. Now, based on the new rulebook we just went through, with 70,000 records leaked, everybody expected the hammer to fall, a fine somewhere between 5 and 10 million rubles. Seemed like a painful but pretty straightforward case. But that is not what happened. In a really surprising turn of events, the court reviewed the case, and because this was the company's first ever offense, they decided to issue Just a warning. That's it. No multi-million ruble fine. So what's going on here? Are these tough new laws just for show? Not a chance. The consensus among legal experts is that this is a temporary grace period. The courts seem to understand that these changes are massive, so they're giving businesses a very, very short window to get their act together. But make no mistake, this is not the new normal. This is the calm before the storm. Which, of course, leads us to the most critical question of all. With the clock ticking on this grace period, what do you need to be doing right now to protect yourself? Here's your 5-step defense plan. First, audit your data. You can't protect what you don't even know you have, right? Second, beef up your security, and you have to document everything. If you ever end up in court, that documentation is your best defense. Third, you need an incident response plan. You have only 24 hours to notify the regulator after a leak, so you need a fire drill ready to go. Fourth, check your contracts with vendors, because if your supplier has a breach, it's still your liability. And finally, number 5, train your people, because your expensive high-tech firewall is useless if somebody clicks on the wrong link. The bottom line here is that you just can't be reactive anymore. The old way of dealing with problems after they happen is over. You have to build your defense before an attack happens, combining both legal and technical measures so you can prove you've done everything in your power to comply. So, we end up right back where we started, but with a lot more clarity. The laws on the books are incredibly tough. The courts, for right now, are being lenient. The crucial question that every single business has to be asking itself is, how long is that grace period going to last? And will you be ready when it finally ends?